The Raging Soul versus the Restless Gambler. Quite a matchup we have here. What's up, guys? I'm Hakari, and here we are to do a nice little breakdown / live reaction. So this is that. It's a breakdown and live reaction to Restless Gamblers Hakari versus Mahito. Is completely one-sided. Now, notably, your boy's a huge Restless Gambler fan, and I've definitely been pausing. I've been putting myself on hold, unless it's One Piece, because I don't really talk about One Piece that much on the channel, but like, I've been putting his vids on hold, so I had a nice little stockpile so I could react to a whole bunch of them. Some other ones I'm excited to react to is What If Hakari Went to Shibuya. He has some other vids on the channel that I'm really excited for. He just dropped a top 24-hour stream that I'm going to watch independently, because we'd be here for 15 years, Eugene Total versus Every Disaster. There's so many different things on Restless Gambler channel that I'm super duper duper uber duper excited to see, but you know I gotta react to this one. So let's not waste any more time, and let's hop right into it. Editing me, I need you to do me a favor. Come to this reality. 3, 2, 1, go.
Mahito is in possession of one of the most...
Alright, hold on. Before we get into it, what's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact. Man. If you want me to be real, be real. I'm gonna give you my thoughts before we hop into it. The one issue Hakari has is that we just have no idea if he can damage souls. That's the one thing that makes this matchup annoying. Because stat-wise, it's fully in Hakari's favor. Whether or not, like, the big question that always goes into this whenever I talk about this with people is, well, do you think Demon God fully healed Yuji is stronger than 120% Yuji? If you do, like I do, then stat-wise, base Hakari dog walks Mahito. The only issue would be, like, hypothetically, Mahito's, like, insane durability if he goes into true to spirit, whatever, instant spirit, whatever it's called, instant spirit body of distorted execution. If he goes into that, then he might cause me a little trouble. But would he lose? Nah, he'd win. Like, I think Hakari is one of the few people who could genuinely, like, wombo combo stun lock Mahito. Because Mahito's not one-tapping him. If Mahito wasn't one-tapping Nanami or one-tapping Toto, he's not one-tapping someone stronger than 120% Yuji with Idle Transfiguration. He's not even going to be able to land the Idle Transfiguration. And the moment that first jackpot rolls off, he's just going to be getting him. And getting them, 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 and over and over and over again. And I'm sorry, if Mahito's out here struggling to Idle Transfigure, like, what? Grade 1s? Like no offense to Nanami, no offense to Toto, they're my boys. But he's struggling to RCT grade 1s with their level of cursed energy, or not RCT, to Idle Transfigure grade 1s with their level of cursed energy. I'm sorry, there's no universe, realistically, where he's Idle Transfiguring Jackpot Hakari. So as long as Hakari gets that first jackpot off and starts rolling, he could genuinely beat the life out of Mahito. Like, straight up force him to run out of cursed energy, but it would take forever. So, like, in a short-range fight, I could see Mahito on base Hakari immediately going for Idle Transfiguration the moment he realizes Hakari's stronger than him in base. Like, I could see Hakari losing if and only if he messes around, like he did against Troll. If he doesn't take Mahito seriously, and Mahito realizes the threat that Hakari is before Hakari opens domain, then you could open up a path for victory. Mahito would be getting knocked around, but with no one jumping Mahito or anything like that, and Hakari's inability to harm the soul, he'd be like, this is annoying. And then he'd open his mouth, domain expansion, and then cook Hakari. But if Hakari opens up in Jackpot or gets Jackpot, I think it's kind of just like a multi-day long battle where Mahito eventually runs out of cursed energy or just slithers away. Those are my thoughts. I think Hakari has better stats. I think if he had soul damage, he'd wipe Mahito. He just doesn't have soul damage. At least not confirmed soul damage. He's one of, like, every single one of our other heavy hitters from Jujutsu High, whether it be Yuta Kotsu, or Maki Zenin, or Yuji Itadori, they all have really solid matchups against Mahito in particular. Yuta has his own domain expansion to go bar for bar, and you could argue he has soul manipulation or soul damage through, like, his ability to manipulate Rika's soul for the longest time, even subconsciously, in a similar vein to what Yuji did by caging Sukuna, so there's definitely that for Yuta. Or obviously he could just slide the ring on, take Idle Transfiguration for himself, and then start cooking Mahito. Rika may have the soul properties, all the stuff like that, and heck, if Rika just holds Mahito forever, what's he gonna do? He ain't breaking out. He could slip out, though. He could do some Idle Transfiguration stuff. Maki Zenin has Soul Split Katana. You know, the thing that was bad. That attacks the soul, and even then, we know she can perceive the soul. Like, we know she can see the soul of inanimate objects. That's a prerequisite for using Soul Split Katana. So Maki has ways to just make, and actually just beat Mahito up with soul damage, because she would be accidentally hitting his soul, or even purposefully, who knows, considering she probably knows Mahito's weakness and abilities, considering Nobara knew, because the Mahito was talked about, so Maki would have that, and obviously Yuji has it. Obviously, I keep saying obviously, there is some contention on whether or not Yuji can still attack the soul, but considering he got the soul book, considering he was doing it subconsciously anyway, considering all this stuff that goes into Yuji, he still obviously has a really good matchup. Hakari's the only one of the heavy hitters who has a kind of weird matchup, just based on his lack of soul damage, and I'm interested to see where Restless Gambler takes this concept with that in mind. So enough of my yapping. Let's let Restless Gambler pop off.
Lethal curse techniques in all of Jujutsu Kaisen. Idol transfiguration. With
Yes, sir.
such a potent curse technique, the community has definitely acknowledged the threat that he would pose to majority of the verse.
What's that
In
image?
today's video, we'll put this threat to the test. What's up guys, Restless Gambler here, and in today's video, we've got a versus battle that's been a long time coming. Back during the beginning of my YouTube journey, I made a short explaining why I think Hakari beats Mahito, but honestly, I don't think what I said was fair to either combatant. So I brought it upon myself to do right by both these characters and really find out who would come out on top. Before getting into the video, YouTube woke me up last.
Okay. Hold on, let me like the video real quick, because I feel like he's about to ask to like the video. Video's liked. Speaking of liking videos, have you liked this video? I'd really appreciate if you did. It helps out the channel a whole bunch. Please, I'm begging. I'm begging. But with that being the case, I don't know. I think it's kind of basically Restless Gambler's motif. I don't know this. They're like I'm gonna have my own music on, so you may not be able to hear it. Just knowing what editing me does with the audio versus like mixing and stuff like that. I do things very particularly, especially when I'm reacting to other videos. But I don't know, that opening beat he always has. It's very consistent. It's all across his One Piece videos, across his JJK videos. I love it. I'm not sure what it's called. In fact, let me peep the description real quick. I can peep the description. Timestamps. Oop. Okay, he has timestamps in the description. So like, I'm not sure what the beat is, but it is. Sorry, that's why I started hopping and jiving a little bit, because it's just straight gas. But let me hop back in the video itself. And this is one thing. Restless Gambler has such amazing production on his videos. Like, fantastic. Him and Mir are the two. Him, Mir, 100, like, they all just have fantastic production on their videos, respectively, which is why they're always a treat to watch. It's why I like to react to them, too, because, like, there's multiple levels of humor. There's the analysis, but then there's also a whole bunch that goes into the editing that makes the video super duper entertaining. But let me actually hop back into it.
To tell me only 20% of the people watching my content is subscribed.
And I am one of that 20%. Well, that 19 point. Actually, what is my ratio? Now that I think about it. Hold on. Do I have a way to? Yeah, I do have a way to check that. Let me peep real quick. I actually don't even know what my own ratio is. I'll look it up as the Googler loads up. But actually, nah. Just if you haven't subscribed, if you're enjoying the vibe so far, just subscribe. It's free. It don't hurt. It don't hurt you, and it helped me. And if you want more consistent JJK, anime and manga, any content, welcome to That Guy with the Pencil. If you haven't subscribed already, I greatly appreciate it. But same thing to him. Go subscribe to Restless Gambler. If you somehow found me, but you don't have Restless Gambler in your feed, go subscribe to Restless Gambler. Like, it's so, like, I feel like I'm glazing, but it's earned glaze. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I'm glazing for no reason. Go subscribe to Restless Gambler if you haven't subscribed to Restless Gambler. I'll be speaking way too quick. Let's actually hop right back into it.
If you enjoy JJK content like this, go ahead and subscribe. You get more videos and we'll both be happy.
Big facts. Also hit the notification bell.
The first person we'll go over is Mahito. Mahito, as I said, is a huge threat to the JJK verse, and we were lucky he never got to reach his full potential.
Sorry, I know I keep cutting in, and we're like 2 minutes into the 19-minute video, so I'm sorry. Welcome to That Guy with the Pencil, where the link will be in the description to the original video and Restless Gambler's channel if you don't want to hear my endless yapping. But Mahito, at least the way he was, obviously he still had more to go, but if Instant Spirit Body of Distorted Execution was really his peak, bro was getting cliffed, regardless, even if he went on. Like, he kind of, like, the Culling games introduce a whole bunch of bad matchups for him. Obviously, like, Higuruma's still an easy matchup for Mahito. Obviously, Reggie and his whole crew was most likely an easy matchup for Mahito, no doubt about it. But like Sendai alone introduces a bunch of characters who just mog all over Mahito. That's not how you use mog, but they mess up Mahito like crazy. From Ryu to Uro, even Druve, because the double reincarnation thing could kind of go crazy. Though Druve got one tap by Base Yuta, so maybe not. But like at least Uro and Ryu go crazy on Mahito. Yorosu goes crazy on Mahito. Angel goes crazy on Mahito. Like Kashimo goes crazy on so many characters, because of how they're reintroduced into the plot with the dual soul thing. They kind of just give Mahito the work, and then a bunch of existing characters get massive buffs. Like Maki, who was nowhere near in the same league as Mahito, gets her awakening, and that sends her way past Mahito. She went from way below him to way past him. Megan Fushiguro, nothing at all. But like, there are definitely numerous characters that get introduced after Mahito's end that it makes sense, at least with their current level of power, that Mahito got when he did. Because if he tried to run up in the wrong colony, bro was getting cooked. But he's right. Mahito was definitely a threat.
But in this video, we'll go in depth into Mahito's scaling and put him against the likes of the Restless Gambler without missing a beat. Mahito is a character who progresses massively fast throughout the story, and to emphasize this, we'll go through his feats from his debut to before his demise at the hands of Kenjaku. As to start it off, we'll go over Mahito's strength. As you can probably tell, Mahito doesn't have many strength feats before he realizes he has a mortal enemy in the name of Yuji. And the main reason for this is because he would mainly rely on his curse technique's prowess. When he fights Nanami in chapter 22, he's never forced to go on the offensive with actual physicality, instead just trying to transfigure Nanami. In chapter 28, he's getting pressed by Yuji but transfigures his body to stab him, keeping him in place to finally use idle transfiguration. This isn't that much of a strength feat, however, because Yuji just casually walks it off and continues to pummel him. But keep in mind, this also wouldn't work against stronger sorcerers since he couldn't just use it on Nanami. But this is an early Mahito. In Shibuya, when he fights Yuji and Todo, we get to see Mahito use his physicality. In chapter 121, Mahito punches Yuji in the face with a fist reinforced with I don't know what the hell this is, but it's a reinforcement. And it was such a potent attack that it scarred Yuji for life. Then in chapter 127, after supposedly killing Nobara, he starts beating on a Yuji who isn't defending himself. Now, after the Black Flash, he enters a state of focus, unlocking 120% of his potential. And
one thing that is, I mean, it's fine, but with Hakari getting introduced and how many characters should scale above base Hakari, it really is embarrassing. Like Mahito, you had 15 years, especially in the anime, you had like 15 years to wombo combo bro into infinity. And he still got up, and he still worked you. Like, I know Nita came in and gave Yuji that fresh seal up. He put that flex seal all over Yuji's wounds. And of course, that immediately stopped any progression of the wounds. But Mahito, for real, you landed a Black Flash on bro. You started wombo comboing him, throwing him around, slamming him through multiple pillars, and you didn't even get rid of him? You're telling me that one thing where you wild up and you went, why I order, and you buried that in his dome piece, that was more than any of the like serious damage you did with everything else? That's kind of crazy to me. Of course he gets the other one. Like, the two scars are from Mahito. Like, the one that goes down his face and the one here. It's from his, I believe it's from Instant Spirit Body. It's from his elbow blades. So, like, don't get me wrong. Yuji definitely takes permanent damage from Mahito. They're some of the most defining traits. The two characters that leave scars on Yuji, permanent scars, are Mahito and Sukuna. Obviously, his two biggest, direct, cleanest parallels and antagonists. So, like, it do be making sense. But the wombo combo that Mahito was giving Yuji, not getting rid of Yuji, to the point where Todo could come in, Nita could come in, and then Yuji could get in, like, Mahito. A little bit embarrassing, broski. It's why Mahito's strength is honestly a little bit lacking. When you have his technique, and you're not fighting the Vessel of Ryomen Sukuna, and your opponent also is, like, grade 1 and below, do you really need strength? I can understand it.
with this amp, he hits Todo in the stomach with a Black Flash, and Todo had to use all of his cursed energy to reinforce that part of his body. For speed, this too is a step.
Which is also, like, in retrospect, it's why I kind of say Black Flash is just Gege doing nonsense. Like, I don't, like, don't get me wrong, Gege, amazing writer. Fantastic dude. Like, sure, stabs my soul at every opportunity. He might as well be Mahito with how much damage he'd be doing to my soul. But, in spite of that, I swear Black Flash is nowhere, it barely feels like a 2x multiplier. For what damage it'd be doing? Like, you mean to tell me it really is an exponential multiplier? Really? Really? Like, I forget what the... I think like, if Black Flashes were actually accurate, JJK characters would be slower system level. Like if Black Flashes were actually raised to the 2.5 power, I think, like, what? A Black Flash Goodwill Yuji would have solar system level AP. Because I think he's like, since he's able to damage Hanami and base, and Hanami has a domain expansion, should be comparable to Dagon, if not superior to Dagon, based on their age as a disaster curse and stuff like that. And then you, like, take the low end and just say Dagon's thing is, like, I think it was, like, city level. If you lowball Dagon's island to city level and don't just go with, like, the mountain from Jogo or island level from that, and then you just multiply that by 2.5 times, it's solar system level. If you multiply the jewels by the jewels, and then by half the jewels again, that's solar system level. And you're telling me characters just eat these? Like, Toto just ate a 2.5 Black Flash from Mahito? Was Mahito suppressing himself to, like, a billionth of his cursed energy output? Like, yeah, I don't know, bro. Honestly, he could have just made it a 2 times multiplier, and nobody would have asked a question. I wouldn't even be asking questions. Of course, that would still raise some weird questions. Like, there are certain things that especially happen, like in Gojo versus Sukuna. You mean to tell me Gojo landed what? On Sukuna's what? And you're telling me base Gojo was already burying his fist in his chest? You mean to tell me Sukuna just, like, barely a hole? Like there's nothing there. And you're telling me that's a 2.5 times multiplier? Not 2.5 times multiplier. A power to the 2.5? Really? Yeah. Be for real with me. But nah. Mahito is he's still cooking though.
That Mahito grows exponentially in the story over time. Before getting jumped by Nanami and Yuji, he's not able to touch a Nanami at 80% of his cursed energy.
Oh, this is just one... I'll wait if we get a clearer shot of this clip here. A big thing that people tend to misconstrue because of the anime, in the manga, Mahito did not use... he did not use domain expansion while whited out in the eyes. He does have pupils in the manga when he activates domain. That's something the anime does, and it throws off a lot of things in the manga. Like, we've never seen someone activate a domain with their eyes whited out. So, like, that's a thing that happens in the anime. I see that clip, and I see it consistently misconstrued in the comments from time to time. So I just want to bring that up. But I'll see if I can find a better clip when it actually shows it.
Circumstances, and is only able to do it after transfiguring his legs to accelerate further. But as the story progresses, he continues to get faster. In Shibuya, we get a direct statement about his speed. When he attempts to replicate Gojo's 0.2 second domain expansion, the narrator tells us about the speeds of each character in the scene. Toto's defense against the domain was a simple domain he inherited from Yuki Sakuma. Yuji was even faster, already running towards Mahito to exercise him before the activation of Idol Transfiguration. But the fastest was Mahito, who had already activated his curse technique. Of course, in combat, all 3 of these combatants are relative in speed, as Toto, who was even focused on Mahito, was still able to react to him running full speed at him, but Mahito was just a little bit faster. But with such speed, one can only question if Mahito matches said stat in another: durability and endurance. Now, this is Mahito's most contentious stat, and for good reason. With his curse technique, which I'll go over in a second, he's able to essentially revert his body back after he takes physical damage. The first example of this was in chapter 22. Nanami hits Mahito's weak spot and dismembers his arm. Mahito then goes on to revert his arm back to how it was before it got attacked, essentially using a fake version of healing. And so with this ability, we're never actually exposed to how durable a base Mahito is. He obviously got cooked when Nanami hit his weak spot, something Dagon easily took twice in a row from a stronger Nanami. He also had his arm dismembered again by Yuji's Black Flash. One thing that stands out to me, however, is in chapter 124. In the chapter prior, we're met with the realization that Mahito actually has a double on the loose, and the double ended up in front of Nobara. They start fighting and Nobara's actually able to damage Mahito with her resonance. This is a bad thing for Mahito because he's fighting her without his curse technique since he's a double. And so with that, the double runs away to the main body.
I gotta go back to
switch, and the main body touches Nobara, and as the double reacts, he gets one shot by Yuji. We are never actually told or given an implication that this double has less durability than the main body, and so with that, this really isn't a good look for him, because this means a Mahito without proper defenses up would get one shot by a Yuji tier character. For endurance, however, that is completely impossible to gauge, and the reason for that is Mahito's.
Yeah, it's that, like, the main time Mahito's established as super duper durable, just in general, even in comparison to Yuji, is when he goes into Instant Spirit Body. And notably, it's one of the weirdest statements that Gege makes, but it makes sense if you read the fight again. Like, this always, it blew me away when I first heard it, but then I reread the battle and it made more sense to me. The only stat of Mahito that increases during inverted spirit bot and whatever, the body thing, the only stat that increases is durability. That to this day, that always feels weird to me. But looking at how the fight goes, yeah, it is mainly just durability. He just gets 200% tougher. That's it. It's kind of a whack buff. Like, especially for the true culmination of his soul, he loses a lot of flexibility for the durability. And sure, against UG tier characters, that's fine. But like, my boy Ryu would sneeze in that Mahito's general direction and wipe him from existence. So realistically, we're doing good. But let's see.
Hacks. The first sentence of this video summarizes Mahito's hacks. Mahito has one of the most broken curse techniques in all of Jujutsu Kaisen. In his own words, I'm not healing, instead I'm reinforcing the shape of my soul. You get it now, don't you? My curse technique can touch and reshape the soul. Mahito, while using this technique, is not only able to perform pseudo healing, but can turn you into a McMuffin if he wanted to. We see that with regular humans, he's able to turn them into his pawns for battle. He's also able to shape his body to fit his goals, like moving faster with legs of deer or using slashing attacks by changing his hands into a scythe. This
Nice way to plug the
while
thumbnail.
being incredibly potent, isn't unbeatable, but that's something we'll mention later in the video.
Ooh.
Nevertheless, this guy's curse technique is insane, and if you aren't careful, your dreams of being a McMuffin will come to fruition. With all that said,
Which one of y'all dreaming to be a McMuffin? Which ones of y'all are dreaming to be McMuffins? I mean, this is a safe space, y'all. Like, if you really want to be a McMuffin, let me know. Just, I can't help you with it, but like, they're not gonna eat you, even if you are their favorite food, which would happen to be a McMuffin. Just know that. And you also can't be a McMuffin, but like, which one of you freaky deaky individuals is trying to be a McMuffin?
killed Mahito and his incredible prowess in battle, and now it's time to move on to the man unlucky enough to face him.
Unlucky enough, really? Hakari Kenji?
When you're scaling Hakari, it's important to note two things. 1. Hakari and base and jackpot vary tremendously in stats. And 2. Hakari, knowing this, has two different fighting styles. This is a topic I'll go more in depth with.
Okay. This is interesting. Because if you're me, and by me, I mean, Jackpot Hakari's a nightmare. He's clearly stronger, but how much stronger though? What's the multiplier? How much does the infinite curse energy help him? Is his durability trash? Is his attack potency trash? How come he, in both of his most major battles in Jackpot, he one-shots Charles, which is good, but Charles is random. He's fodder. He's garbage. He's booty meat. But, like, how come after an extensive battle with Kashimo Hajime, with multiple jackpots involved, how come he only leaves Kashimo Hajime with, I feel, a little drip? How come after slamming Urume through multiple buildings, with multiple attacks that catch Urume off guard, meaning their curse energy reinforcement shouldn't be the peak, they're taking no damage? Like, I 100% agree Jackpot Hakari should be massively stronger, but how much stronger, though? Are we just going to go with the Yuta statement? If we're just going to go with the Yuta statement, then we can go crazy. But, like, if we, because the common, I don't know, at least it seems like the whole community has turned on that statement. I'm personally fine with it. Mainly, I mean, I'm definitely making a Hakari versus Yuta video, and why I give Yuta the edge in that fight pretty clearly, not just on like a Darren level, but also a feat level and stuff like that. But there's like, it's a nightmare. Personally, I'm fine with the statement. I've gone into this before. I made a whole video talking about it. But like, the reason I'm so fine with the statement isn't just because I'm a Yuta hater or something. Don't go with that. It's because it can make sense if you go with the base body reinforcement stuff. And you equivocate boundless curse energy to infinite curse energy. And Hakari Kenji's superior physical feats in terms of throwing people around and launching them through buildings and throwing cards and stuff like that. Like, there are ways to get it. And just because he'd be stronger than Yuta doesn't mean he'd be stronger than fully manifested Rika, which I don't think Jackpot Hakari is. Like, I'll level with you real quick. I think if Jackpot Hakari and fully manifested Rika were to start in the general direction of each other, Hakari's arms annihilated, like, indubitably. So, I'm fine with him being stronger than Yuta. But I'm interested to see what Restless Gamble has to say, because I think this is my first Hakari video of his that I watched? I think about it. That's crazy to think about, but I think this is. Let's see.
In a future video, be on the lookout for it. But with that said, we can enter Hakari's strength. Before his debut into the story, we had multiple statements about his proficiency as a sorcerer. He's one of the 3 people Gojo thinks will eventually become as strong as him, and Yuta himself claims Hakari when he's on a roll is stronger than him. The validity of this statement isn't all too important right now. The bare minimum is that Hakari and Yuta are relative in terms of fighting capability. But there is an emphasis on the fact that this is in reference to Hakari in Jackpot and on a roll. In base, we get to see his capabilities 3 times, against Yuji, Charles, and Kashimo. There was a 4th time against Urame, but there isn't much to base it off of because we don't actually know what happened.
It is still... Is it Urame or Urume? I think it's... So many people say Urame. I'm going to say Urame even though I say Urume all the time. Shockingly, no one's corrected me on that one. No one's corrected me on that one. So no. And I'll have to go listen to the depth. Well, I'll call it Urame since Restless Gambler calls it Urame. A lot of other people call it Urame. So Urame. I say it. I'm sorry. A lot of people call him Urame. But Urame, it's so weird. Considering what Urame is doing to Jackpot Hakari, the fact that base Hakari got away with anything inside that domain is wild to me. Wild. Just insane to me. Let's see.
After 155, Hakari tests Yuji because he sees a call from Kirara. After Yuji, like he doesn't know who Gojo is, Hakari realizes that he's from Jujutsu Tech and starts beating the crap out of Yuji. Keep in mind that during this initial scuffle, Yuji is indeed dodging, blocking, and trying to attack back. It's only after Hakari punches him outside of the room that Yuji starts neglecting the act of guarding. Hakari himself says that he was smacking Yuji around while Yuji was actually trying to fight back. And so with that said, a base Hakari is overall stronger than Yuji. This Yuji, keep in mind, is stronger than he is in Shibuya, given that Choso compares him to a demon god after literally seeing him in his 120% potential state during the arc. The Culling games start and Hakari fights Charles, a new sorcerer, and he's mostly able to pummel him when he wants to. Charles even claims that one punch from Hakari would have killed him or at the very least put him out of the fight. And the final time we see base Hakari in action is during his fight with Kashimo, where he mostly just gets deleted multiple times over. In his off-screen fight with Urame, he comes out unscathed and his clothes still intact. There is ambiguity on whatever happened inside the domain, but what we do know is that Urame, after seeing a base Hakari, immediately resorts to named attacks. These named attacks, when fired off, are meant to destroy limbs if need be, and so Hakari at the very least would have some clothes torn off. But this just isn't the case. The fact that they fought the entire time Kashimo vs Sukuna happened leads me to believe Hakari wasn't in guaranteed jackpot mode. And if that's the case, he's not using his pseudo spins, as it's stated he doesn't use them unless he's in guaranteed jackpot. Even more, to the people who don't read the story, Hakari cannot use pseudo spins after reach mode. So what we would have is a base Hakari fighting Urame while the reach scenario plays out. And with that in mind, a base Hakari could potentially be fighting on par with a beast like Urame. In Jackpot, it's a completely different story. When he fights Kashimo, it's so very obvious that he eclipses him in everything other than lethal attacks, since Kashimo has lightning. But when he wants to, he beat Kashimo to a pulp, and after their fight, Kashimo is so vulnerable that Hakari is able to kill him. For Hakari's speed, this one is kind of underrated.
I'll go with it. I'll go with it. I'll go with it. This is the Kashimo Glazer in me. It's the farmer fan in me. I'll admit. Like, he is definitely, but like, they go really relative. For Jackpot to be as powerful as Jackpot is, they go really relative. Like, once again, end of the fight, the main reason Kashimo's vulnerable to Hakari, like, I get why you're building the narrative to cover Hakari's strength. It's like, you don't go into it too deep. But the main reason that Hakari even beat Kashimo is because he put him into water, made him burn all his cursed energy, and then Kashimo burned all his cursed energy again, and then was left no cursed energy against Hakari. And then he maybe had been able to fight back, kind of, sort of, but he would just be a regular dude versus Hakari who would still have some cursed energy left over and just a missing arm. But hypothetically, Kashimo could have just booked it away if he really wanted to, but he lost the fight. He's very much like Sukuna in that manner where he, like, if you beat him, go ahead, off me, I ain't using my cursed technique. So, like, I wouldn't say Jackpot Hakari, like, I wouldn't put him in an entirely separate tier up from base Kashimo. That's the farmer fan in me, though. So if you disagree, I'm fine with that.
The community. A base Hakari is able to literally perception blitz Charles, who was literally looking right at him, and can look 1 second into the future of Hakari's movements. And when he fights a bloodlusted Kashimo, while Kashimo runs at him when he's off guard, he's able to box with him. given Hakari still gets violated, but he's still able to keep up for the most part. In Jackpot, Hakari's speed.
To be fair, though, once again, I'm just throwing in context because I don't like sitting here during videos and not adding anything. So I'm gonna throw my own 2 cents. One, Charles is nobody. Man we don't know. He doesn't even have a statement like Higuruma where he's grade 1. Sure, it's impressive that Hakari's able to just teleport, but like hypothetically, if you were to put me as I am right now in front of Haruta, for example, he would perception blitz me. Give me cursed energy, he probably still perception blitz me. Like, Charles is super duper new. We have no context for Charles' speed or anything like that. It's mainly why I just use, like, I kind of pretend that Charles' fight doesn't happen. Like, I really, like, it's bad, just because there's nowhere to place him. It is legit one of Hakari and Kashimo's biggest issues. They are tied so tightly into their own little bubble that connecting them to other characters, unless you start using statements, is a nightmare. Honestly, Charles is kind of just nobody. So it's hard to scale him to anything. Like, is Charles stronger than Yuji? I don't think so. Do we ever see base Hakari perception blitz Yuji? No. So I don't think he can. But that's just me. If you think base Hakari can perception blitz Yuji like he perception blitz Charles, then there you go. But that's the thing. We have no context. It's why Hakari scaling is a nightmare. And I was really, really, really hoping for some base Kashimo feats on some version of Sukuna, so we could get something, but base Kashimo gets knocked away and then he immediately goes Phantom Beast Amber, which should at bare minimum, if you just go Gojo's statement about, oh, 80% of a sorcerer's potential is Curse Technique, and then, you stack that, Kashimo's using 20%, he then goes to 100% and 5 times multiplier at a bare minimum, stuff like that. And then he gets some feats. But Hakari doesn't scale to that at all. So, like, it's a nightmare.
Skyrockets. Previously.
Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say, while Kashimo was in Hakari's domain, I mean, I guess he does low-key kind of go for it right at the end. But I think in that first domain where they kind of go bar for bar before Hakari gets the instant jackpot, I don't think Kashimo's trying to execute him. Because that comes right, well, no, not right after. Essentially, Kashimo wanted to get rid of Hakari while he was immortal. And in Domain, he wasn't immortal. So I don't think he was really going for it there. I really don't. But I can understand why. Some would.
I said it was always clear that Hakari in Jackpot eclipsed Kashimo in every stat other than lethal attacks, and this of course applied to speed. In chapter 188, when Hakari decides to put more effort into the fight, he's suddenly able to blitz Kashimo and absolutely violate him in hand-to-hand combat. This is definitely a feat to be reckoned with, as Kashimo would put the beast on almost everyone in the verse if he wanted to in base. We actually get to see Hakari's speed during.
There's a great video by Babylon over on TikTok that explains the cursed energy bonus thing, where Hakari just seems to magically get faster at the end. It's because he gets a cursed energy bonus at the end of rounds. But I need to do like unscripting explain videos. I had to rewrite a whole 6 pages. Not 6, it was 2. But still, 6 pages. Let's just say 6 pages. For a Kenjaku explain video, because I misinterpreted his domain expansion. Hakari's a nightmare to explain. Well, City to Babylon. Let's see.
His fight with Urame, as he's able to continuously attack them in conjunction with the speed of his regeneration. But the fact that Hakari is in need of regeneration is something attributed to his durability and endurance. This is the main stat where we have to make a distinction between the fighting styles of Hakari. In base or in a state where he isn't guaranteed to heal or revert his body back, Hakari fights regularly, throwing hands and avoiding attacks. The main example of this is in chapter 183 during his fight with Charles. He isn't guaranteed a jackpot in the next round and isn't in possession of pseudo-spins because of that, so you can see him dodging Charles' attacks even though he has 2-second precognition. But when Hakari is guaranteed a reversion of damage, Hakari changes his fighting style. When he fights Charles and finds out he has golden shutters, in other words a really high chance of getting a jackpot, he allows himself to get hit by Charles in the last second, because right after, he gets a jackpot and kicks him in the face. This is shown 2 more times after this. In chapter 188, Hakari literally says, "I'll sacrifice my body to get aggressive," and we see him able to blitz Kashimo. And finally, we see against Urame that Hakari capitalizes off of Urame thinking Hakari's finished after cutting his arm off, then blitzing them after letting his arm regenerate. But with all that in mind, in base, Hakari is able to tank Yuji's attacks with 0 casualties and walk out undamaged by Yuji after they had their fight inside the room. Whoa, pause. In Jackpot, Hakari allows himself to get hit, so for the most part, his durability is truly unquantifiable because we don't know exactly what he can do when he reinforces his body. And that's where Hakari...
That's the big nightmare, right? That's the big nightmare. It's why you almost catch me say, I don't say it fully. I think I've said it with my chest once or twice. Like, I still believe bro should be bulkier. It's just the attacks that do lethal damage to him are just lethal. Like, Kashimo's Lightning Bolt is just lethal. Urume's ice attacks are just lethal. Like I like to go with that. Because the thing is, if you just say Jackpot Hakari just has no durability, like he's just garbage, or at bare minimum he's equal to his base self, then Kashimo's Bolt sucks. Like, Yuta would be able to palm Kashimo's Bolt. Then Yuji would be able to face tank Kashimo's Bolt. Then Maki would be able to face tank Kashimo's Bolt. Like, essentially, if you think that characters who are at bare minimum above base Hakari in terms of durability, Kashimo's Bolt becomes trash. Urume's attacks become trash. Everything becomes trash. That's the thing. But I don't blame people for not assuming that he's giga durable and then he just sacrifices things all the time, because he has infinite curse energy, but it doesn't mean he has infinite durability. So like, it's a nightmare. It's once again, that's why Hakari's scaling is such a nightmare. But let's see.
Attacks come in. In base, Hakari has access to train doors, balls, and hypothetically pseudo spins since the doors are a height indicator. But in Jackpot is where Hakari shines, as he now has access to infinite curse energy. With this in his back pocket, his body performs automatic reverse curse technique to avoid any damage caused to his body. The speed of said regeneration is so fast, Urame claims it's even faster than Gojo and Sukuna's. And so with all that set in stone, we've discussed both fighters' abilities and prowess in battle. So who would win? Well, let's find out.
Start the battle music. Start the boot. Wait, was it? Is it start the Budokai music? Start the Budokai music. Sanji disappears. I'm sorry. I don't know. That's the main. I think that was the first video that got me in Restless. I don't know why I clicked on one of his Sanji videos. I think it was Sanji. It was either Sanji versus Katakuri or Sanji. Who is it? It was Sanji versus Katakuri or Sanji versus. It wasn't Sanji versus King. That's a more recent one. But still, it was one of them. And now whenever he says, let's go into the battle scenario, my brain immediately goes, start the Budokai music. Sanji disappears. But, I mean, to be fair, outside of like, this is going to sound blasphemous. Is it blasphemous? It may be blasphemous. Depends on how you scale the verse. Outside of like Gojo, Sanji does wash JJK. He would perception blitz everybody here. But let's see.
In this video, to make the fight simulation as compact as necessary, we would have to ask ourselves many questions. 1. Is Mahito's technique invincible, and if not, how can you counter it? 2. Does Hakari fall under any of these counters? And 3. Can Hakari just heal from idle transfiguration? Okay, so before he answers all these, let me try to answer all these. Number 1, is Mahito's technique invincible? If not, how can you counter it? It's not invincible. It has hard counters. Yuji hard counters it by having 2 souls inside of him. Anybody who has 2 souls is a hard counter to Mahito. There are other ways to counter it, like if you have a resonance type technique such as Nobara. If your attacks directly attack the soul, in the case of characters like Maki and Toji Soul Split Katana, or things like Unlimited Void, I guess, then that also would do damage to Mahito. That's how you counter it. Does Hakari fall under any of these counters? Not necessarily. I mean, one counter to add to the top one, you could run Mahito out of Cursed Energy. That's the main thing. You can run Mahito out of Cursed Energy. You would have to atomize him, though. You'd have to do lethal damage. Like, presumably someone like Goku could beat Mahito. Well, you can make weird arguments that Goku has soul interaction. What's another character? Krillin. Krillin could fire a Kamehameha at Mahito and literally vaporize him. Presumably he would still perish to that. But it's just like, outside of Ryu, and like Yuta, and Gojo, not many characters in JJK can just fire lasers. So, and Geto and Kenjaku. Those are like the few that can actually just straight fire a laser. But even though Krillin doesn't have soul damage or soul attacking stuff, he would be able to beat Mahito. Because if you vaporize Mahito, Mahito can't regenerate. Or fake regenerate. But Hakari is one of the few characters, despite having infinite curse energy, he's never shown lasers. So he couldn't do that.
either, but he could just beat Mahito down to run him out of cursed energy. It would take forever, though. That's the annoying thing, and Mahito could escape. Does Hakari fall under any of these counters? Yes. He falls under the better stats, plus more stamina, plus L, plus ratio, plus no Duraneg, plus you suck, plus you're ugly, plus you get no... Let me stop. But he does fall under the beat Mahito down counter, but that's about it. Can Hakari just heal from it? I don't think so. I don't think he can automatic RCT soul damage. Because the thing about Mahito's L transfiguration is that it's legally not soul damage. He's just changing the shape of it. So, like, if he changes the shape of your soul to the fact that your lungs can't breathe, that's your new base. So, if you were to hypothetically tag Hakari, and it were to work, then, well, bada bing, bada boom. He's cooked. But the thing is, with Hakari being a super duper uber juper high grade 1 in base, stronger than Demon God Yuji, clearly based on their little encounter, and in Jackpot having literally infinite amounts of cursed energy, Mahito's technique is never working. Ever. So that's the thing. So that's a counter. But I don't think he can heal from it if it works. But let's see.
Starting off with the first question, Mahito's technique indeed isn't completely invincible. We see that during his fight with Nanami, Nanami...
Wait, there's the thing from way earlier in the video.
Can Hakari just heal from idle transfiguration? Starting off with the first question, Mahito's technique indeed isn't completely invincible.
Please. You see how they are whited out in the anime? Mappa added that. Go back to the manga, I believe it's chapter 29. He still has pupils. He activates domain expansion with pupils. For some reason, in the anime, it makes it look like he activates domain with his eyes closed, or like, while he's knocked out. That's not a thing in the manga. The anime does that. The anime adds weird things that contradict the manga. This is one of them. The other one is Toji blocking the red with Inverted Spear of Heaven. When Toji does... Get out! When Toji does this in the anime with Inverted Spear of Heaven, that's also an anime-only edition. Not what happens in the manga. Verbatim. In fact, quite the opposite. It's why Toji says he can deal with it with Inverted Spear of Heaven. But in the anime, that statement doesn't make any more sense, because he blocks it in the anime. Where in the manga, it kind of makes anime Inverted Spear of Heaven kind of trash, because it means that in order to turn something off, you need to actually poke it. Versus where in the manga, it's implied as long as it comes in contact with the blade itself, then the technique will be turned off. And the third major one I can think of is Maharaga getting vaporized by Flame Arrow before Sukuna turns off domain. Because then that implies that you can do two at the same time. You can change a technique, a wholesale, because it's mentioned in the data book that the Flame Arrow is a separate technique from Shrine itself. That implies that you can imbue a technique into a domain and also use another technique. Even switch techniques live on the fly. Now, admittedly, this is seemingly established as a thing that Sukuna can do in the manga, which is weird, but he explicitly says that he can't, which is also weird. Because, like, he's using 10 Shadows and Shrine at the same time. Sure, it's Maharaga chilling over Megami Soul, but it's still a utilization of 10 Shadows. So, he can do it. But then, in the battle itself, it's specifically stated that he can't do it. Like, he says it himself. I think. I need to double check. But I think he himself says, I can't use techniques other than the ones that are imbued into the domain. Maybe he's just lying, though. It is Sukuna. He could just be... But does he say that in his head or out loud? I think he says it in his head, but he may have said it out loud. If he said it out loud, he's probably just lying. Bro may have just been lying. In that case, the anime doesn't contradict anything. But if you go by the manga, then that's not a thing that can happen, which is another contradiction from the anime. Don't get me wrong. In all the instances, it makes the moments look cooler. Like, Mahito activating domain with his eyes closed is a much harder image than what happens in the manga where he does with the pupils, where it actually looks kind of silly. With Toji blocking the red, it's really, really cool. Just because you get to see the red push him back, and then he gets slammed through the buildings. Whereas in the manga, it's just red beam, Toji, drip from the head. And then for Maharaga, of course it's cool to see Malevolent Shrine still active and see Sukuna pull a flame back and launch it up. But it causes issues with the manga. All three of those, and I think there are more, but I have to go and look.
We see that during his fight with Nanami, Nanami is able to resist the effects of the technique just by being strong enough to unconsciously protect his soul. There are also other resistance to the technique like domain expansion and simple domain, but these don't matter to the matchup because Hakari's domain isn't lethal and he doesn't have simple domain. The overall point is that if you're strong enough, you have a certain resistance to the technique, but there is another qualification that comes up to interpretation. When Nanami fights Mahito, his resistance is described to be cursed energy protecting his soul. But during this fight, we get emphasis to two different things that beg the question about whether or not Nanami's resistance was really just because he's strong. The first thing that is emphasized is that Mahito can tell from his soul that he's lying when Nanami denies bringing personal feelings to work. And the second thing emphasizes that Nanami has a binding vow where anytime before overtime he's only at 80% curse energy. Now what I think this gives credence to is the fact that Nanami's personal binding vow keeps his curse energy dormant in his soul. How else would your binding vow know that you've broken it other than your soul wavering? Of course, like I've already said, this is up to interpretation. But with both of these qualifications in mind, moving on to question 2, does Hakari fall under any of them? The plain answer is yes.
Intriguing. First thing, the only reason I don't think it has to do with like curse energy being locked away in soul related, I think it is just straight curse energy amounts or how powerful you are. Todo. Mahito doesn't even think he could one-tap Todo, even though he has access to Idol Transfiguration. He's specifically like, can I actually one-touch Broski in the state I am now? He questions that. And that's only because of how powerful Todo is. So that's the thing. That is a cool theory, though. That it has to based on the fact that cursed energy being left over could hypothetically cause the soul to be automatically protected. I think it is just a thing sorcerers do subconsciously, though, if they're powerful enough. That's my view, though. I do like that theory, though.
Top of Hakari being clearly very strong, much stronger than Todo and Nanami, he also has a similar binding vow to Nanami, where he gambles infinite curse energy under the conditions that he gets a jackpot at terrible rates. With this in mind, a base Hakari would have decent resistance to the technique, and with jackpot, regardless of which interpretation you go for, has infinite resistance. And no, Mahito cannot just spam his Mahito cannot just spam his sure hit in his domain and get Hakari. That just does not work. With infinite cursed energy, either Hakari can unconsciously protect the soul because Nanami, someone with finite cursed energy, could, or his binding vow that allows an infinite supply of cursed energy would have cursed energy infinitely pouring from his soul. And the final question, can Hakari heal from Idol Transfiguration? Absolutely not. Previously I said that Hakari could just cut off his hand and heal it back like Todo, but this was completely disingenuous. What Mahito did to Todo here was likely explode his arm by shaping his arm accordingly. So that means if Todo were to use RCT, he wouldn't regain an arm because his arm is already gone from his soul shape. Now with all that said, let's enter a fight simulation. This fight will take place in Tokyo Colony 2. Same rules as always. Whoever dies or gets knocked out first loses. So let's go and simulate the fight. Play the Budokai music. The fight will start with Mahito being on the offensive trying to touch Hakari. Now here's something we have to acknowledge for both of these characters. Hakari is an analytical fighter and Mahito in character lets people know of his ability. If Mahito has his hands covered in cursed energy and is trying to touch Hakari instead of punching him, Hakari will notice this and likely avoid his hands. At the same time, if Hakari starts punching Mahito and Mahito just continues reverting, Hakari will notice this. When Mahito realizes the confusion, he tends to reveal his curse technique. No matter which interpretation you go for, Hakari will be on the lookout for Mahito's hands. However, Hakari's speed outclasses Mahito as he's able to outpace a Yuki faster than the one that was boxing with Mahito. And so Mahito would never be able to touch a base Hakari. But at the same time, no matter how much Hakari tries to counter, Mahito continues to revert damage. And so the next action is up to you to choose, because regardless it would end up in Hakari's favor. Hakari realizing his attacks won't do anything would expand his domain, but if that doesn't happen, Mahito realizing he can't touch Hakari conventionally would expand his domain. But if Mahito does that, Hakari expands his own. One thing to keep in mind is that Hakari's domain is stated to be faster than Mahito's fastest domain, as well as better in tug of wars. So in both scenarios, regardless if Mahito tries to outtake Hakari's or if Mahito expands his first, Hakari's would win, and so Hakari would roll.
The only way, here, let me try to give the Mahito fans, all three of you, let me give the Mahito fans some hope and cope. The only way you could hypothetically argue around that is just say, well, the moment Hakari realizes he's trapped in a domain and goes to do the hand sign for Restless Gambler, his hands are gone. Like, that's the only way you can argue it. Because we know what Mahito did in Shibuya is he did what Gojo did. He folded the activation of his domain and the activation of the technique into one step. It is one fusion thing. So, hypothetically, the moment Hakari realized, if the domain, like, say, for the example of the barrier, right? Let's say Hakari's here and Mahito's here. Mahito expands domain. Unless Hakari activates his domain before the shell can spread just over him, then he should just be mutated immediately. Well, actually, not immediately. He still probably could go for it. The question is, though, would he be able to strike the pose as his hands are mutating? Could he hold it? That's the only hope. That's the only hope and hope I can give you, Mahito fans. Otherwise, it's not it.
For Jackpot and eventually get it. Now it's Mahito versus Jackpot Hakari. A Mahito who would have lost his curse technique because of trying to expand his domain, and Hakari with hits exponentially stronger than any of Yuji's would blitz and pummel Mahito to the dirt. Reminder that Yuji could one-shot Mahito if Mahito gets blitzed or isn't able to react, and so it's not out of reality to say Hakari can do the same, as we've seen him blitz a character like Kashimo. But what if we say Mahito never expands his domain when Hakari expands his?
What's this image?
This means it's a Jackpot Hakari who's completely immune to his curse technique versus a Mahito who's completely immune to Hakari's attacks. But even if Mahito doesn't try to, the fight would come down to a battle of attrition. Hakari in character likes to find ways to run his opponent's curse energy out like he did against Kashimo. So continuously damaging Mahito would make Mahito need to use his curse technique continuously. With Mahito unable to expand his domain upon the risk of getting overtaken, Mahito unable to touch Hakari because of Hakari's speed, and Hakari being able to loop his domains because of those two conditions, Mahito loses 10 out of 10 times. So yeah, Hakari versus Yuta is still a question. So I guess you could say the fever of the Restless Gambler was much too hot for the cold-blooded cursed spirit.
Alright. Oh shoot. I'll let it play out, but W video. W's of a video. Makes sense. Absolutely. I agree with everything he said. Just minor things about the scaling, but I know why he said them in that way. Like, I'll admit, even I be saying things that I don't fully believe in when I'm talking about just straight scaling stuff, just to hype a character more. So, like, who knows? Maybe. There's some things where he says, I'm like, oh, wait, what do you mean? But even then, I can see the interpretations of what he means. He provides the scans and the panels to show it. So overall, in a crazy W video. Fantastic work by Restless Gambler, as usual. I will let this run out fully. But if you happen to make it all the way to the end of this video, please leave the Restless Soul in the comment section down below. The Restless Soul. I'm not sure if I said that right the first time. I want to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that notification bell so you notice out on any videos that come to the channel. Once again, if you want to peep the original video, it will be linked in the description down below, along with Restless Gambler's channel. Go sub, go like the video, go do everything. Guys, fantastic. You want to watch it without my yapping. Trust me, I yap a lot. But with it being the case, thank you guys so much for watching once again. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do happen to have a pop-up Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. You get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks include the live reaction to the very next chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen. And they also include ad-free variations of all the videos, including this chunk of a video right here. But now, thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dagger the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Connor Plays, Redwolf 4765, Greyhound, and Akids Void. I'd like to give another thank you to our $5 patrons, Victor, Sean, RNG Master, Midnight Gemlord, Metal Solid Crisis, Kevin, Igneal, and Demix LND. I'd like to give another thank you to our $7 member, Autumn's Morning Lazo. I'd like to give another chunk of thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha, Joaquin, Idemokami, and China Doll 09. I'd like to give a fat, juicy, scrumdiddlyumptious thank you to our wonderful $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. I'd like to give another hefty, defty, trifty, nifty thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.